Imagine a place where the ocean follows no rules, where the wind blows without warning, waves rise like skyscrapers, and icebergs the size of cities drift slowly, waiting to cross your path. This place is real, and it's not part of some adventure movie, but located at the southern edge of our planet. The Drake Passage is often called the deadliest waters on Earth, a natural corridor between South America and Antarctica. It has swallowed ships, silenced entire crews, and tested the courage of legendary explorers. And yet, it continues to draw in sailors, scientists, and thrill seekers. Why? Maybe because some routes aren't just paths, they're trials for those brave enough to face the impossible. In this journey, you'll uncover tales of bravery and tragedy, learn how the ocean current Antarctica turns this passage into a true maritime battlefield, and see the challenges that even the most advanced technology still struggles to overcome. But be warned, the more you learn about these waters, the stronger your urge to cross them, even if only in your imagination. Imagine a natural corridor stretching 600 miles, connecting to massive oceans, the Atlantic and the Pacific. This is the Drake Passage, a kind of liquid bridge between the southern tip of South America and the frozen islands of Antarctica. On one side, the infamous Cape Horn, on the other, the South Shetland Islands. And in between, a deep, chaotic blue with no mercy. Here, it feels like the earth turns into open sea. No walls, no promises of calm. This passage isn't just a line on the map. It's alive, raw, and always moving. The ocean current Antarctica, known as the strongest on the planet, flows right through it, creating a natural whirlpool that challenges even the most seasoned captains. And what's surprising is that, despite all the danger, it's still used by tourist vessels, research ships, and cargo freighters. It's a bit like that risky road everyone insists on taking because it's the fastest way through. Now think about this: if the world had a scar in the ocean, it would be right here. These are restless waters loaded with stories, fears, and discoveries. Many refer to this region as the deadliest waters on Earth, and it's no exaggeration. What you see there are giant waves and icebergs dancing in the wind, like guardians of a forbidden gateway. But why do so many people still cross this route despite the danger? Is there something beyond fear? Something that pulls explorers, scientists, and adventurers into the heart of the most dangerous sea routes on the planet? Maybe the answer lies with those who never made it through. When we talk about the Drake Passage, we're not just talking about a sea route, we're talking about a liquid graveyard. Over 800 ships swallowed by the waves, and more than 10,000 sailors who never returned. It's as if the sea itself decides who may pass and who must stay behind. There's something solemn and silent about these waters that have witnessed so many final goodbyes. At Cape Horn, a monument shaped like an albatross pays tribute to the lost. It's a powerful symbol, as if it flies eternally over the names the ocean chose to keep. It's more than just a sculpture. It's a reminder that every crossing here carries the weight of those who tried and never made it. Many of those sailors were never even found. This reputation as a deadly route didn't come out of nowhere. Hurricane-force winds, treacherous tides, and the relentless push of the ocean current Antarctica create a setting that defies logic. And when all of this collides, the outcome is a collection of stories that sound like legend. But these legends have names, dates, and documents. They are real, painful, and often forgotten. What's most curious and unsettling is how, even with this dark history, ships still keep crossing. As if something within the Drake Passage keeps calling sailors back, like a cycle that never ends. Maybe the answer lies in the tectonic plates beneath the sea, hiding a secret far older than we imagine. It all began millions of years ago, when South America and Antarctica started to drift apart. It wasn't a peaceful breakup, it was a clash of colossal tectonic plates grinding and shifting, making room for what we now call the Drake Passage. This separation is estimated to have occurred between 17 and 49 million years ago, a stretch of time that's nearly beyond comprehension. And this geologic shift quite literally changed the course of the planet. That massive tear in the map opened the path for the ocean current Antarctica, also known as the Antarctic Circumpolar Current. It didn't just start flowing freely, it became the largest oceanic engine on Earth. To give you an idea, this current affects the climate of the entire southern hemisphere, and to some extent, the northern hemisphere as well. A continental rupture that became a global climate pendulum. It's fascinating to realize that what we now call the deadliest waters on Earth began with a slow dance between land masses. And even more astonishing, this natural channel played a major role in the formation of the polar ice caps. Without it, Antarctica might never have frozen the way we know it today. In other words, the Drake Passage isn't just a danger to ships, it's a key component in the architecture of the planet. These deep origins also help explain why the region is so unstable. The seafloor here bears the scars of its geological history, cracks, peaks, and trenches that create unpredictable behaviors in the currents. And it's exactly within this rugged underwater terrain that the current's force intensifies, giving rise to a phenomenon most captains would rather never encounter. The ocean current Antarctica, also known as the Antarctic Circumpolar Current ACC, is like the liquid lung of the southern hemisphere. It flows endlessly around Antarctica with no natural barriers to stop it, carrying an astonishing volume of water, up to 150 million cubic meters per second, according to the British Antarctic Survey. That's more than all the other ocean currents on the planet combined. This constant motion influences Earth's climate in ways we often don't notice. The ACC acts like a massive thermostat, redistributing heat and cold while helping preserve the polar ice caps. Studies published in Nature Geoscience reveal that without this current, Antarctica's ice would have melted millions of years ago. In other words, what may seem like just a rough sea is actually a system that helps sustain the planet's balance. But here's the part many overlook. As the current passes through the Drake Passage, it narrows and speeds up. It's like placing your thumb over a running hose, the flow intensifies. This creates colossal waves and cross-currents that defy even the most advanced navigation systems. This natural funnel is one of the main reasons why this region is among the most dangerous sea routes on Earth. And it's in this volatile setting that giant waves and icebergs appear, the offspring of a powerful ocean system that no one can control, but everyone fears. Knowing this makes us see every ship that dares to cross these waters in a different light. And to truly understand how this affects not just those who sail through it, but also the secrets hidden below the surface, we need to go deeper, quite literally. Beneath the surface of the Drake Passage lies a hidden world few can imagine. The underwater terrain is rugged, filled with ridges, deep trenches, and structures that resemble submerged mountain ranges. Depths here range from 11,200 to over 15,700 feet, deeper than many skyscrapers are tall. In this realm, the ocean isn't just vast, it's uneven and treacherous. These geological features are remnants of the tectonic shifts that gave birth to the ocean current Antarctica. They act like invisible ramps and walls, redirecting the flow of currents and contributing to the formation of whirlpools and turbulence. The most fascinating part, these whirlpools, known as eddies, can span up to 300 miles in diameter and persist for months. It's this twisted seafloor that amplifies the dangers of navigation. When waves crash against these underwater ridges, they rise with even greater force, as if the sea were spitting out liquid mountains. The combination of irregular terrain and intense currents helps explain why this is one of the deadliest waters on Earth, where giant waves and icebergs seem to appear from nowhere, challenging even the most resilient ships. That's why the most seasoned sailors study seafloor charts with the same precision a pilot uses when reading flight instruments. Knowing what lies beneath is just as critical as watching what's above. And when it comes to researching all this, few places on the planet are as captivating to science as this remote and hostile region. Despite its history of shipwrecks and storms, the Drake Passage remains a crucial route for anyone trying to reach Antarctica. It's essentially the gateway to the frozen continent, and the most direct one at that. Every year, large tourist vessels, cargo ships, and research vessels cross these waters. And it's not out of stubbornness, it's out of strategic necessity. For scientists, this passage serves as a natural laboratory on a planetary scale. Research on the ocean current Antarctica, the impact of global warming, and marine life in extreme waters all takes place here. Universities like Stanford and institutions such as NOAA invest heavily in scientific missions across the region. After all, understanding how one of the most dangerous sea routes works means understanding a vital part of our planet. Moreover, the Drake Passage is a prime observation point for climate and oceanic phenomena. It's a key location for studying whale migration, iceberg formation, and deep-water chemistry. The data gathered here helps forecast weather patterns and even extreme events across other continents. What happens there doesn't stay there. It echoes across the globe. Still, crossing this stretch of water is always a gamble. The deadliest waters on Earth don't forgive mistakes, and making it through requires precision, preparation, and sometimes a bit of luck. And if we have the knowledge we do today, it's because a few brave souls were willing to face the unknown first. Before the Drake Passage was recognized as one of the most dangerous sea routes, it was just a mystery on the map. In 1525, Spanish explorer Francisco de Haces became the first European to report an open passage south of the continent. He didn't sail through it, but from a distance, he witnessed the chaotic seas and the gap between land masses. That alone was enough to spark both fear and curiosity. Decades later, in 1578, Sir Francis Drake would confirm what many believed was impossible. Yes, there was open ocean south of Cape Horn. His crew was blown off course by powerful winds and currents, and suddenly found themselves in uncharted waters. It wasn't a planned discovery, but it became a historic one. So much so that the area was later named the Drake Passage, a living tribute to his boldness. The first intentional crossing wouldn't come until 1616, when Dutch navigator Willem Schouten deliberately sailed around Cape Horn. His expedition proved there was an alternative route to the Pacific, one that didn't rely on the Strait of Magellan. It was a major commercial and geopolitical breakthrough, but also an open invitation to danger. After all, they were charting a course through a region where giant waves and icebergs made the rules. Those early explorers had no GPS, no satellites, no radar. Just sails, rough maps, and an abundance of courage. They faced the ocean current Antarctica head-on, relying on the stars and their instincts. Their discoveries reshaped geography and laid the groundwork for routes still used today, including modern scientific expeditions. But not every journey that followed had endings as heroic as their journals might suggest. The Drake Passage shows no mercy. In 1741, the HMS Wager, a British ship from Anson's expedition, wrecked there in brutal fashion. What followed was just as dramatic as the sinking itself: mutiny, murder, desertion, and only 10 survivors. The sea had already claimed the ship, but human nature finished off what was left. Decades later, in 1819, it was the Spanish ship San Telmo's turn to vanish without a trace. It carried 644 crew members, none of whom ever returned. All evidence suggests the vessel was consumed by the deadliest waters on Earth. But to this day, no definitive wreckage has been found. For many historians, the San Telmo remains one of the greatest maritime mysteries of the 19th century. And anyone who's heard of Ernest Shackleton knows his 1914 to 1916 expedition came close to the impossible. After his ship, the Endurance, became trapped in ice, Shackleton and a small crew crossed the Drake Passage in a tiny lifeboat, facing giant waves and icebergs without a single modern navigation tool. They survived, and their story became a symbol of human resilience. But that heroic crossing was born from tragedy. These aren't just old sailor tales, they're sobering reminders that this region demands respect. The risks haven't changed much over time. The only difference today is that we have better technology. But even that doesn't always prevent what happened not so long ago. Even with all the onboard technology, the Drake Passage still commands both respect and fear. In 2022, the Viking Polaris cruise ship was hit by a massive 52-foot, 16-meter wave during its crossing. One passenger died and 8 others were injured. The wave came without warning, no signal, no build-up. It simply struck and reminded everyone who's in charge out there. The incident served as a harsh wake-up call. Not even modern radars and forecasts can always outsmart the unpredictable. The impact shattered windows and flooded cabins in seconds. And this was a state-of-the-art ship, designed with the latest engineering to handle rough seas. Still, the sheer force of the ocean current Antarctica, paired with the region's fierce winds, proved overwhelming. Events like this are exactly why sailors fear the infamous Drake Shake, a term used to describe the violent motion ships endure while crossing these waters. It might sound like an exaggeration until you see videos of vessels tilting at nearly 45 degrees in open sea. Even seasoned passengers report nausea, falls, and a total sense of helplessness. If a luxury cruise ship with cutting-edge equipment could barely withstand it, imagine what smaller vessels face, and yet many still dare to sail through. Navigating the deadliest waters on Earth takes more than preparation. It requires precise, calculated decisions made long before the anchor is even lifted. What makes the Drake Passage so dangerous isn't just one factor. It's the relentless combination of extreme elements. The ocean current Antarctica, for instance, carries over 150 million cubic meters of water per second, more than all the rivers on Earth combined. It flows unimpeded, gaining speed and power as it surges through the narrow passage. And when it collides with winds reaching 70 miles per hour, the sea turns to chaos in a matter of moments. The wind, in fact, is a force of its own here. With no land barriers in the vicinity, it blows freely, generating waves that can easily reach 65 feet. These waves often appear out of nowhere, shifting the mood of the ocean in minutes. That's how the giant waves and icebergs are born, turning this into one of the most dangerous sea routes on the planet. Another element at play are the swirling eddies, born from the clash between frigid Antarctic waters and warmer currents from the north. These spinning pockets of energy behave like underwater whirlpools, creating unpredictable movements that can destabilize both large and small vessels, even those following carefully planned routes. This combination of natural forces is what creates the infamous Drake Shake, a phenomenon sailors know as the ultimate test of stomach and nerve. It's no wonder many refer to this stretch as the Everest of the seas. But perhaps nothing puts the danger into sharper perspective than when something even more unpredictable comes into play: the ice. If the wind and waves already make the Drake Passage a challenge of its own, icebergs are the final ingredient in this polar cauldron. Massive chunks of ice break off from Antarctica and, driven by the powerful ocean current Antarctica, drift north right into this maritime route. The problem, many of them are partially submerged, turning into nearly invisible hazards, even for modern radar systems. And all it takes is a few seconds of inattention for a collision to become fatal. A prime example is Iceberg A76, detected in 2021. It was twice the size of the city of London and began drifting slowly toward the Drake Passage. Icebergs of that scale may not seem like an immediate threat, but their silent movement represents a very real danger. Experienced captains know it's not a matter of if the ice will appear, but when and where. To make matters worse, the number of icebergs is on the rise. With accelerating climate change and the melting of ice shelves, colossal fragments are breaking off more frequently. NASA scientists have already pointed out that the southern region is becoming increasingly unstable. That means sailing through one of the most dangerous sea routes on Earth is growing even more unpredictable. The challenge isn't just avoiding the visible blocks, it's also dealing with the smaller ones, known as growlers, that float just beneath the waterline. These can slice through a ship's hull like a sharp blade. Faced with this reality, navigators are forced to make difficult decisions, constantly balancing safety, timing, and the exact path to take. Sailing through the Drake Passage demands more than just experience, it demands instinct. Captains who take on this crossing don't make decisions based solely on maps or weather forecasts. They read the wind's behavior, gauge the strength of the ocean current Antarctica, measure wave height, and even track iceberg movements. Everything matters: the angle of the bow, the vessel's speed, and most of all, timing. Often, a difference of just 6 or 12 hours can mean the difference between a successful journey and a looming disaster. That's why crossing windows are planned like a choreographed ballet with nature. The captain adjusts the route to dodge the largest giant waves and icebergs, as if dancing between invisible monsters. Even the angle at which the ship hits the waves can reduce impact by up to 40%. And still, even with all that preparation, the unexpected always lurks. It's common for ships to change course mid-crossing to avoid a sudden storm system. In these moments, quick thinking and steady nerves are essential. The crew's best weapon against the deadliest waters on Earth is their deep understanding of it, sometimes more than the onboard technology. It's this constant tension between control and chaos that draws many navigators in. Because deep down, it's not the captain who rules these waters, it's the sea. And between one turn of the radar and the next, stories of courage and survival emerge, stories that often never make the news. Not all stories from the Drake Passage involve massive ships or legendary expeditions. Some of the most remarkable come from lone fishermen, amateur sailors, and small vessels that dared to take on the deadliest waters on Earth. There are records of crews with just 3 or 4 people crossing this stretch in boats under 40 feet long. And perhaps most astonishing of all, no sponsors, no media coverage, just courage and practical knowledge. In 2010, for instance, a group of Argentine sailors made the crossing in a classic wooden schooner, braving winds over 60 miles per hour and dodging giant waves and icebergs with the help of hand-drawn maps. They recorded everything on amateur cameras, and those videos now circulate within nautical communities as symbols of quiet bravery. None of them were military or scientists, just people deeply in love with the sea. Other stories tell of daring rescues carried out by helicopters flying in extreme conditions, often with near-zero visibility. There are accounts of pilots who had to hover above moving ships while waves crashed against their fuselage, risking everything to save lives. These missions are a stark reminder that survival in the Drake Passage can hinge on mere seconds and decisions made with surgical precision. These are the kinds of stories that rarely make it into history books but live on as modern legends among sailors. And while such feats are inspiring, they also serve as warnings. Surviving out there isn't about luck. It's about preparation, instinct, and humility in the face of the sea. And with the changes happening across the planet, even the most seasoned navigators are beginning to rethink their strategies. The Drake Passage, once shaped by brutal geological forces, now faces a new kind of transformation: climate change. The accelerated melting of the polar ice caps is increasing the number of icebergs in areas that were once relatively open water. And with more drifting ice, the risk of collision rises sharply. According to NASA, Antarctica has lost over 2.5 trillion tons of ice in the past 20 years alone. Beyond that, global warming is directly impacting the ocean current Antarctica, altering its strength and even its behavior. Small temperature shifts can amplify the currents and disrupt wind patterns, making the weather in this narrow stretch even more unpredictable. For those navigating these deadliest waters on Earth, it means heightened vigilance with every crossing. Storms are also becoming more intense and frequent. What was once considered rare, such as waves nearly 20 meters high, is no longer exceptional. This has pushed the scientific community to reevaluate forecasting models, while many navigators are ditching old maps in favor of near real-time data. Technology is a powerful ally, but the human factor remains essential. In this new reality, the question is no longer just how to cross, but when and even whether to cross at all. Some routes are being reconsidered, and there are growing calls for new strategies to avoid the Drake Passage during certain times of the year. But there's one lesson science is slowly learning to accept: the ocean doesn't announce when it's going to change, it just changes. Crossing the Drake Passage today is nothing like it was in Shackleton's time. Modern vessels are equipped with high-resolution satellites, radars capable of detecting giant waves and icebergs miles away, and real-time weather forecasting systems. Advanced meteorology has become just as vital as the ship's hull. Navigating these waters is now a game of information and precision. Wave prediction models like an OAAS WaveWatch 3 help captains select optimal routes and avoid the most critical zones of the ocean, current Antarctica. Automated positioning systems can adjust a ship's course within seconds when strong gusts strike. It's as if navigation now includes an invisible co-pilot, constantly monitoring the sea's every move. Yet even with all this technology, the risks are far from eliminated. Small icebergs, known as growlers, often slip past radar systems. Sudden storms can still form within hours, completely altering the forecasted conditions. That's why, despite all the cutting-edge tools, human experience remains irreplaceable when navigating the most dangerous sea routes. What's fascinating is that many of the technologies developed specifically for the Drake Passage are now being applied in other critical parts of the world. From the Bering Sea to the Cape of Good Hope, the systems tested here serve as models for handling extreme maritime environments. And it's through this global lens that we truly grasp the unique and perilous role the Drake Passage plays. When it comes to dangerous seas, the Drake Passage is almost always at the top of the list, but it's not alone. The Strait of Malacca, for instance, is notorious for its heavy traffic and risk of piracy, while the Bering Sea challenges ships with drifting ice and near-constant fog. Each has its own trap, but none combine as many extreme elements at once as the Drake does. The Cape of Good Hope in South Africa, once dubbed the Cape of Storms by early navigators, also presents massive waves and powerful currents, resembling the Drake Passage in many ways. However, the absence of the ocean current Antarctica makes its behavior less unpredictable. It's like comparing a fast boxer to another who's not only fast, but also hits harder. Other regions, like the North Atlantic in winter, experience towering waves and violent winds. But very few places bring together such a perfect storm of abyssal depths, giant waves and icebergs, swirling eddies and 70 miles per hour winds like the deadliest waters on Earth. This unique convergence is what sets the Drake apart, placing it in a league of its own in maritime lore. For sailors, comparing these routes isn't just a matter of curiosity, it's a matter of preparation. Knowing what to expect in each sea increases the chances of making the right decision at the right moment. And maybe it's precisely this mix of danger and allure that explains why, even after centuries, the Drake still calls. Now that you've uncovered the hidden forces and stories that shape the Drake Passage, the question is, what would make you cross a place like this? Would it be the pursuit of knowledge, a personal challenge, or simply the curiosity to witness one of the most dangerous sea routes on the planet up close? Think about it, because to understand these seas is to understand how far we're willing to go to face the unknown. Maybe you'll never step onto a ship bound for Antarctica. But the lessons here about preparation, respect, and courage apply to any journey in life. What Drake passages have you faced on your own path? And more importantly, are you ready to navigate through them? If these stories stirred something in you, keep exploring with us. Subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and become part of a crew that doesn't fear the horizon. Because the world is far too vast to be seen only from the shore.